Hello and welcome to this episode of the Northwood Podcast. Our podcast is the creative effort of our church, Northwood Christian Church, in partnership with Wish TV and the All Indiana Podcast Network. For more information about the podcast that they produce, please visit either allindianapodcastnetwork.com or you can find them by typing in www.wishtv.com/podcasts, and I encourage you to check out those podcasts, all made right here in the great state of Indiana. All this said, this podcast is a creative effort of my church, Northwood Christian Church, that I'm the pastor of. And if you'd like to learn more about us, please visit our website, which is www.indncc.org. That's INDYNCC.org. I'm giving this little talk on the week before a national holiday, namely Thanksgiving. And I have a confession to make. I sometimes don't know what to do when these civic holidays and the life in the church collide in this way. That is, when a national holiday makes its way into church sanctuaries, because those are supposed to be places where we discover our identities as children of God, first and foremost, irregardless of our nations or our tribal identities. And so I try to leave the civic holiday stuff on the outside and the Christian holidays on the inside of the sanctuary. But in this case, I can safely say that in Thanksgiving, we have a national holiday that is part and parcel with our Christian faith. For after all, aren't we called to be grateful? And we'll talk more about that in a bit. But first, we'd like to pause for some advertisements. If you're listening to this via podcast, we'll be right back. But if you're watching by way of YouTube or on Facebook Live, here is an awkward pause for some ads. And we're back. And today we're going to be considering a passage from the Bible that's found in the 17th chapter of the Gospel of Luke. And we will be reading verses 11 through 19. And they read, "On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 lepers approached him, keeping their distance. They called out, saying, 'Jesus, Master, have mercy on us.' And when he saw them, he said to them, 'Go and show yourselves to the priests.' And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. When Jesus asked, 'Were not 10 made clean? But the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?' Then he said to him, 'Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well.'" Here is a story of an exceedingly grateful man, and why shouldn't he be? He has just been restored to health. But for you and I, what are we grateful for? And you know that day is coming up. Actually, it's this week, 4th Thursday of the month of November, Thanksgiving, where we eat turkey, or I don't know what your custom is, but many of us gather with family and friends. And at some point during the day, those of us who have gathered will pause, or we should pause, and we'll name the things for which we are grateful and what in our lives makes us more whole as people. And we'll name those things, or we'll name that person or those relationships. And we'll pause and we'll take inventory of the things in our lives that have replenished our spirits and have put us further on our paths to wellness. In fact, if you are very fortunate, you may be able to name moments in your life when you seem to have arrived at a place of wellness, full stop. And if you are one of those whose mind is at first completely blank when asked the question, what are you grateful for? Well, you're not alone. On Thanksgiving, I may want to resonate with the leper in this story that went back to Jesus and thanked him for the gift of health that had been bestowed upon him. Perhaps after years of isolation and loneliness, because you see, leprosy was a skin disease that required that people like him be put outside of the city in, well, it's where we get that term, leper colony, in a separate place to live. So maybe we have enough to be grateful for to feel like him, but these days I feel like perhaps I'm more like the other 9 who were healed, but then went right into the next thing in life, hardly pausing to note what had just occurred. And please consider, they're just doing what they were told. They're just going about life as they expected life to go on. They're meeting social expectations. If a person, as I was just saying, if they've been ostracized because of a skin disease, they have had to live on the outside of the city. But once they have found themselves to be healed, they are meant to go to the temple to report there to be determined healthy or clean or a fit candidate to return to the community. So it's no wonder that they are hurrying. We could hardly even call them ungrateful. But in the context of a busy life where folks are rushing on to the next thing, there's one man who bucked expectations. In fact, he defied the command of the one who had just restored him. He paused, and he noticed his improved estate, his body no longer marred by affliction, but restored to health, and he said, "Thank you." Well, that's putting it mildly. He did so much more than mutter a thanks. He shouted. He praised God. He fell at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And there is one detail mentioned here that I should note before we move on. The text goes out of its way to mention that this man is a Samaritan. You know by now, if you've listened to many of my sermons, that this is a designation that puts him in the lower classes, if not the lowest class, to put him outside of Jesus' tribe and in-group. And no doubt his life had been made hard by this lower status as Samaritan, an ethnic class that was persecuted in those days. Perhaps this is why he does not fail to notice the blessing. As basic as good health, this blessing. He might not have had a penny to his name. He may have been ostracized his entire life, but at least now he has his health. And for this, he wants to say thank you to the one who has restored his life. But he is so bursting with the joy that often accompanies gratitude that he can hardly contain himself. So no, I'm sorry to say, I am more like the 9 who returned to normal life without so much as a thank you. And how do I know that I'm more like them? Well, because I already have what the man in our story was given by Jesus. I have that gift. It was given him in this story. I already have it. I have already been given the gift that this man has received. I have my health. But this gift was given to me subtly as I've lived. In fact, my health has been handed to me so subtly that I often forget that I have it. This thing called taking my health for granted, I do that. And this man, in this story, should inspire my ilk to pause and thank God for just this, my health, the air in my lungs and strength in my legs. So many don't even have those, but I have so much more. The man born in our story was born into the life of a social outcast and then became more of a social outcast when he fell ill with his skin disease. Me, on the other hand, I have never been ostracized in any meaningful way or like this in any case. That is, I have not been prejudged for something that I cannot help, and all the time, every day. I am not my culture's equivalent of a Samaritan, that is a stigmatized outcast with little upward social mobility. I was born into a loving home, and my parents had enough resources to care for me well. And I had and have friends. I have seldom, if ever, been on the outside looking in like the man in our story. I've never been hungry. I've never wondered where I'd sleep comfortably in the night. And I should make a long list of all that I have to be grateful for. And later, probably, I should make a list of all that I have to be grateful for. But for now, in short, I already have everything that this grateful man had after Jesus had healed him, and then some. In fact, I have far, far, far more. I have far more, but I am seldom as grateful. I seldom make the time to pause. and to say to God and to the people in my life, thank you. And you see how it goes. You could come up with your own litany of things that you don't have the time or patience to be thankful for. But the man in this story made the time. He put down the task at hand, which was, as I said, keeping the law, running to the place where he could be given the designation as clean. Even that wasn't important enough for him to pause, to not pause and to go back and to say thank you. He did not rush on to the next obligation. He paused. It was a moment of Sabbath rest that found him there, a time to simply say thank you. So let this man serve as an inspiration to us. Our civic holiday called Thanksgiving calls us collectively to make the time. So let's take a moment to pause and do something like a wellness inventory. And I can first only speak for myself, and here are the highlights I have. And I've been talking about this already. My health. I have my family. That is my wife, my kids. My parents are still alive. I have friends. I have a home. I have enough food. I have far more than these things. In fact, I have a whole lot that I do not need. So now I realize that my list will not match perfectly with your list. In fact, perhaps your list is rather short, but still, perhaps there are things to be thankful for. We have each other. I have you. You have me. I can call you probably if I know you when something is wrong, and you can call me. That's something. So in this way, we each have each other. Also, we are filthy, stinking rich here at Northwood. And I just mean relative to history and relative to the rest of the global population. Even when budgets seem tight, when we feel like we don't have enough, we have a building, a roof that doesn't leak, knock on wood. We have these magical devices that allow us to stay connected, like this tablet I'm recording this on, or your phone you're watching this on, or your computer. Now, we're connected, albeit imperfectly, but during these times of pandemic in recent years and other periods in our lives when communication needs to happen over a wide geographic distance, well, we have this to be grateful for. We may not have all that we want, but right now, in this moment, just days before Thanksgiving, let's say together that probably we are members of that historically rare group that has all that they need. The future's problems, well, we'll face those after this moment of thanksgiving or gratitude, of acknowledging our currency of wellness. Eventually, the healed man would return and have to keep his appointment with the temple, but first things first, gratitude. So let's follow his example. In what ways are you well? Name them. And if you are aware of persons who are not well in those ways, share the treasure that you have. Let your abundance overflow. If it is food, share food. If it is joy, share joy. If it is fortitude and courage, hug someone who is falling apart. If it is as simple as health, go for a walk and thank God for your steady stride. But notice it. Pause and notice it. Take stock of the currents of wellness and blessing that flow inside of you and all around you. Let the very thought of it be a blessing. And I know that the noise outside of this conversation is very loud. Politics, economic strain, divisions, violence, the morning commute, the paperwork you've yet to file, much less fill out. Listen. You can run from task to task, dash off to the next thing. But if you never pause and look around you at what you have, even if it's as simple as noticing the chair you're sitting in, you will never notice the treasures, the blessings, the humble, precious things in your life. Sabbath, that is the rest of God, is all about pausing to notice these things. Thanksgiving is about pausing to see our life for what it's worth. Take stock of what you have. Let the ways in which you are well and whole be a blessing to you that you notice for Pete's sake. How many times have I failed to even taste the goodness that is right under my nose, I wonder? You know, when we are able to focus on the good things in life, our overall well-being is built up. Perhaps the reason we have been so unhappy of late is we have failed to pause and to notice these things. The man in our story was filled with so much joy that he could hardly sit still. He practically made a fool of himself, shouting and praising God. You can picture him there in public, carrying on in that way. And he may have looked like a fool, but if we had our heads on straight, I think we'd envy him. When was the last time your heart was that full because of the gratitude that you felt? The reason the man in our story was filled with so much joy was because he was only able to see in that moment everything he had to be grateful for. His restored health, his restoration to his community. And when we notice the good things in our lives, all the rest may seem to fade. At least the negative stuff, if only for a moment. And then we can become swept up in joy. So join in the joy of the one man out of the 10 who paused for a moment to give thanks. Gratitude is about noticing what's there and saying to God in all creation, thank you for every good gift. Thank you 1,000 times. Thank you. And to conclude, I'd like to read the grand finale of our story one more time. And as I do, I hope that you can now find yourself in this story about a grateful person who paused to say thank you. And I hope that you might be inspired and let us follow in his example. It reads, "Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him." And he was a Samaritan. When Jesus asked, "Were not 10 made clean, but the other 9, where are they? Was none of them found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" Then he said to him, "Get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well." Thanks be to God. This has been the Northwood Podcast. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe to the podcast by way of whatever app you use to listen, or leave a comment. These points of engagement drive more traffic our way. Or check out our website, www.indyncc.org, and also check out the other podcasts produced by the All Indiana Podcast Network. Until next time, this has been the Northwood Podcast. I am Heath Jones. Peace.